at your will. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand by. Beach Haven meeting comes your way on 5, 4, 3.
Good morning or good evening. I would like to make a couple of announcements before we get started with the meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank the LBI Historical Association for allowing us to hold this meeting here. Please, everybody turn your cell phones off so we don't have cell phones ringing. And a couple of announcements about the museum. There is no smoking in the building or outside of the building on the porch. So if you're going to smoke, you've got to go across the street. There are 2 fire exits. You can see the exit signs, one there and one in the back. So hopefully we won't have to worry about that. There's a bathroom right through that doorway there in case you need a bathroom. So that should take care of the housekeeping. We are going to conduct our regular meeting now at the beginning, and then we're going to go into the meeting regarding the beach replenishment with our presenters. When we get to the point where we do the beach replenishment, a couple announcements. I want people to line up on this side, over here along this aisle in the order. That's Lauren LaCourie, who is our assistant clerk, and she will make sure that everybody's lined up, and everybody will have a chance to speak. But we're limiting the time that you can talk to 3 minutes. Otherwise, we might be here all night. In addition to that, if everybody gets a chance to speak and somebody wants to add something, they can have a second chance at the microphone. Hopefully not everybody will want to do that because it might get very late. But you will have a second chance to speak, but only after everybody gets their first chance to speak. So I want you to line up when we get to that point over there. And I know this will be a very orderly and nice meeting. And so at this point now, I'd like to start the meeting with the flag salute led by Councilman White.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Provided by posting on the bulletin board in the entrance hall of the Beach Haven Municipal Building and mailing the same to the Beach Haven Times and the Asbury Park Press and the Press of Atlantic City. Mr. Katsas.
Here.
Mr. Keeler.
Here.
Mr. Maskell.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here.
Mayor Davis.
Here.
There's a proclamation on the agenda for this evening. The proclamation is for Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2015. Whereas our founding fathers, in order to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, do ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America. And whereas it is of the greatest importance that all citizens fully understand the provisions and principles contained in the Constitution in order to support, preserve, and defend it against all encroachment. And whereas this is the 228th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution and the rights, privileges, and responsibilities it affords. And whereas the independence guaranteed to American citizens, whether by birth or naturalization, should be celebrated by appropriate ceremonies and activities during Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2015, as designated by proclamation of the President of the United States of America in accordance with Public Law 915. I, the Mayor, Nancy Taggart Davis, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, by virtue of the authority invested in me, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2015 as Constitution Week in this community, and I urge all of our citizens to reflect during that week on the many benefits of our federal Constitution and American
manager's report tonight because we figured this will be a long meeting. So at this point, I would like approval of the minutes without formal reading. We have minutes from 5 different meetings.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so the minutes are approved. Okay, now we have an ordinance, sorry, here, take it.
Ordinance 2015-22C, an ordinance amending an ordinance entitled Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, as the same in section 127, deals with mercantile licenses. Final reading.
At this point, this is the final reading. Is there anybody that would like to come up and speak to this ordinance? If you want to, you must come up to the front. Is there anybody that wants to speak to this ordinance? Hearing and seeing that nobody wants to speak to this ordinance, do I have a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Taxis?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
Ordinance 2015-25, the 2015 salary ordinance, final reading.
Again, this is the final reading. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to this ordinance? If so, please come to the front. All right. State your name and your address.
Donald Weinkoop, 1206 South Bay. What is the basis on the increases in these ranges? Are these the same as last year, or are they new? That I see listed?
Rich? Yeah.
There weren't any changes to the ranges.
So the ranges didn't change?
No, only if we had negotiated labor contracts where they had 2% increases and they were below, exceeding the cap range, then we would have to raise the top to keep them within range.
Okay, that's good.
It's just setting the range.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to this ordinance? In that case, do I have a motion to approve this ordinance?
Motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Taxis?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2015-28C, an ordinance amending an ordinance entitled Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, as the same in Chapter 123 deals with littering. First reading.
This is first reading, so we just need a motion to
Motion.
approve.
Second.
Mr. Taxis?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
All matters listed under item consent agenda are considered to be routine by the municipal council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by certification of availability of funds, and any item requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately. All consent agenda items will be reflected in full minutes. Resolution 124, the salary resolution. Resolution 177, returning park bonds. Resolution 178, releasing a performance bond and applying remaining escrow to balance owed. Resolution 182, approving a settlement agreement. Resolution 183, naming alternate municipal prosecutors. Resolution 185, returning piling bonds. Resolution 186, supporting legislation A 4435. Resolution 188, authorizing the execution and delivery of loan agreements to be executed by the Borough of Beach Haven and the New Jersey Economic Development Authority for the Stronger New Jersey Neighborhood Community Revitalization Program, Development and Public Improvement. Resolution 189, awarding a contract to Spartech for IT services. Resolution 190, awarding a contract to Unuzi Group for the NJEA Stronger New Jersey Neighborhood and Community Revitalization Program, building demolition services to the Beach Haven Municipal Building. And finally, Resolution 191, authorizing the return of tax sale certificate premiums.
Is there anybody that would like to remove any of these for further discussion?
Yes, I would like to move 182.
Okay, 182, approving a settlement agreement, you would like to remove for further discussion. All right. So can we vote on the rest of the resolution?
Motion to approve the remaining resolutions?
Is there a second?
I second.
Mr. Kennis?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes. All right, do we want to vote separately on Resolution 182?
I think it needs to be read.
Resolution 182, 2015, approving a settlement agreement with the Museum of New Jersey Maritime History.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I disapprove of this agreement because of the fact that it's an ordinance and we're going retroactive on an ordinance against the advice of council, the borough manager, the clerk, this financial officer. I had agreed to do something going forward for problems, but I wanted on the record that we have taken an oath to uphold the laws of this town, and I feel like we're usurping it by going back retroactive on an ordinance.
At that point, we're going to vote on Resolution 182.
Motion.
I make a motion to vote on resolution 182.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second the motion?
Mr. Katsas?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
No.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
I have a bill list this evening in the amount of $2,058,592.70.
Is there a motion to approve the bills?
I've had a chance to review the bill list and make a motion to approve.
I second.
Mr. Katsas?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes. All right, so the business of the business part of the meeting is over, so now I would like to bring forth our representatives from the Army Corps and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to give a presentation on what's going to be done. So you've got the A team there. I don't know how you want to start it, but I'll hand over the microphone. And you guys can sit up here. And we can move down for the time being. Before you get started, could you
Yes.
introduce
So,
your audience?
my name is Bill Dixon. I am the manager of the Bureau of Coastal Engineering within the DEP. We are the local sponsor for this project, and we also represent the municipality with the Army Corps of Engineers. I do want to thank Mayor and Council for inviting us to present this project to the citizens of the borough. Also with me today is Chris Constantino, my project manager for this project. Also Keith Watson, who's the project manager with the Army Corps of Engineers. Dr. Harry Friebel, who is a coastal engineer within the Army Corps of Engineers. Steve Rochette, who is Public Affairs Officer with the Army Corps of Engineers. And also Rich Johnson, who is the project manager for the Great Lakes Dredge and Dock Company, who is constructing this project for the Army Corps of Engineers. So just the chain of command of the state of New Jersey: Chris Christie, our governor; Bob Martin, our administrator; Rich Borzazian, my assistant commissioner; and Dave Rosenblatt, my administrator. What the purpose of the state's Bureau of Coastal Engineering is to administer shore protection and navigation dredging throughout the state of New Jersey for the citizens of the state of New Jersey. I'm not going to read everything that's up there. The legislature has provided a stable funding for shore protection for the state of New Jersey through the real estate transfer tax. Currently, our funding level is $25 million annually. That funding allows us to cost share with the Army Corps of Engineers and be able to match. To date, we've been able to match every federal dollar that has come to the state of New Jersey for shore protection for its citizens. How this money is broken up, the money is prioritized to federal projects, and they are broken down into studies, and then implementation of federal projects, either storm damage reduction, shore protection projects, and also environmental restoration projects. If there's funding available after these projects are constructed, we also cost share with local municipalities to do just state and local funded projects. And we have done that very project with the municipality in the past. If anyone's familiar with Leeward and Maryvale Avenue, we did a state and local project with the municipality to provide protection to that area in advance of this project. We also fund Stevens Institute of Technology, Richard Stockton College, our Division of Fish and Wildlife, and New Jersey Geologic Survey. Stevens provides us technical coastal engineering expertise. Richard Stockton College performs our beach profile network throughout the state of New Jersey. Division of Fish and Wildlife ensures that we're in compliance with the Endangered Species Act. And New Jersey Geologic Survey assists the Army Corps of Engineers in finding sand sources for these projects. So here's why we prioritize federal projects versus state and local projects. Federal projects are typically cost shared 65-35. This particular project, Long Beach Island, initial construction originally was 65-35, and renourishments were 65-35. And then the local share is broken down into 75-25. What that means at the end of all that is approximately just under 9 cents on the dollar is the cost to the municipality for a federal project. To do a similar project just with the state of New Jersey, on the other side you can easily see it's 25 cents on the dollar to the municipality. In the wake of Hurricane Sandy, Sandy supplemental funds were authorized by Congress. This project was under construction pre-Sandy, and per that legislation, this project is to complete initial construction, is being done at 100% federal cost. There is not a cost share required by the state or the municipality to complete initial construction. I will let Keith Watson, the project manager, go through some of the specifics of this project. Also, we have many other projects going on with the Army Corps of Engineers throughout the state of New Jersey. This is just one of them. There's been a major effort post-Sandy to complete all the authorized projects in the state of New Jersey.
All right, thanks, Bill. My name's Keith Watson, and I'm the project manager from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're based out of Philadelphia, so it's a Philadelphia District project. Again, I want to thank the mayor and the council for having us here tonight. The purpose of the meeting for us tonight is to get some of the information out to you on how the project's going to go, what authorities we're here under, and how successful we've been in other portions of the state as well as on the island, Long Beach Island. Bill mentioned the partnership. The state of New Jersey has to be one of the best non-federal sponsors that we've ever worked with, the Corps. Their dedicated funding source makes these projects happen, frankly, because without a non-federal sponsor, we cannot do these projects. We wouldn't be asked to come in to do them, and then we would not be able to get them authorized and appropriated through Congress. This project is Actually, the Long Beach Island project is called the Barnegat Inlet to Little Egg Inlet Storm Damage Reduction Project. It encompasses the entire island with construction everywhere except for Barnegat Light and the park on the southern end, just south of Holgate. This project, as Bill mentioned, was begun in 2006, with construction beginning in Surf City and finishing just after the new year in 2007. Subsequent to that, we were able to have funds appropriated for Harvey Cedars and a small portion of Brant Beach, and we completed both of those areas. Luckily, Brant Beach was completed just before Sandy hit. So they were able to be protected, that small area, prior to Sandy. But all areas held up. And as part of the federal project, there's the federal Coastal Emergency Fund that pays for repair to projects if they get damaged by a large storm like Sandy. And those 3 beaches were repaired as soon as it was feasible to after Sandy hit. So all those beaches were repaired. So these are just, I'm not going to bore you with all the, the bureaucratic stuff, but the Sandy Repair Authority out of the Public Law 113-2, the Sandy Disaster Relief Appropriations Act, is what Congress passed to appropriate the funds and allow us to complete the project all at one time, which is a large lift. So everywhere else on the island, except for the previously constructed areas, are being paid for 100% federally. So there is no cost sharing. So these are just a few slides that we put together that show some of the areas pre and post Sandy that did not have the beach fill. These are areas of Beach Haven.
Yep, yeah, these photos are from Beach Haven. This was down by Nelson Avenue. Like Bill was saying, this is where we had done a project back in 2008 to do a GO2 project as an interim level of shore protection. To protect those homes that were down there and a few street ends that were adjacent to it. And here in this photo here, you can see that there was some damage, significant damage to the south and to the north. And in the area where we had the geotubes, there was damage behind it. But if those geotubes hadn't been in place, it would have been a lot worse. This is the area up here by Center Street and Angleside Avenue, the Angleside and Seashell. This was before Sandy. This was afterwards. The dune system that was in place, which was fairly significant before the storm, had been washed away. There had been some overwash into the streets and the street ends, and material had washed through some of the buildings, went down the street, caused some damage to some of the structures that were there, and the municipality had spent a lot of money for cleanup, and so did the property owners who were adjacent to the beach. And this was some photos from the street a couple days afterwards.
So once the public law was passed and we were able to embark, we did a Hurricane Sandy limited revaluation report to make sure that the project was still able to be authorized and approved. And then we signed a new PPA, which is a project partnership agreement with the state of New Jersey in July of 2014. That is the key point where we were able to begin work on the project and the areas that would be done, including the state fulfilling their responsibility of obtaining the real estate. And that's still ongoing today. Big point there was the contract was advertised and that was awarded December 5th to Great Lakes Dredge and Dock, who are one of the best beach fill contractors in the country. They have the most experienced company doing beach fills that we work with. And Rich Johnson, project manager of the Great Lakes, is here tonight. And as we get into some questions later, he may be able to answer some of your technical questions about dredging.
We're going to...
You know, right now, we're not having any interruption until the end of the presentation.
Thank you. My name is Connie Tonight. Wednesday,
as the evening progresses. All right, project detail. Yeah, I do.
All right, so as Bill and Keith both had mentioned, as Bill and Keith had mentioned before, the state of New Jersey and the borough of Beach Haven are partners in this project with the Corps of Engineers, and there are obligations and requirements that the municipality needs to fulfill. Essentially, what we will be doing is we sign a state aid agreement with the municipality. Essentially, this just outlines what the municipality's role and responsibilities are with this project and entering an agreement with this project. And essentially, some of those things are obtaining the real estate for the project, so getting the necessary easements that are required to do the work within the project footprint. Also, whatever maintenance activities that the municipality needs to do to the beach in between renourishment cycles, or after initial construction and in between renourishment cycles. The activities have to be obviously consistent with the coastal zone management rules of the state of New Jersey, and they have to be consistent with the language that's in the easement. Essentially, it's to ensure that the town isn't doing anything to the project that's going to jeopardize the longevity or the lifespan of the project or the performance that it was designed to reach. And in addition to that, there are some obligations with the municipality to make sure that the activities that they perform along the municipality's beaches are consistent with the endangered species requirements. And there'll be coordination between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the state's Division of Fish and Wildlife to make sure that plans in effect and everything is consistent with the beach nest and bird management plan.
So one of the reasons we're going through all this background information, because we're not sure everybody understands the effort and study and great lengths that your municipality and your council and the state have gone to bring this project here. It didn't just begin this year. It didn't just begin with Sandy. Work on this project actually, on this design, this project began in the 90s. So it takes that long for a federal project to be able to get into a place that it can be authorized by Congress, and more importantly, the money appropriated to build the projects. So that's why we are going through some of this information that I think is important for everyone to understand, just the scale and scope of the project. And I'm going to get into some of the details. I promise to go through them quickly, but I think they're important for you to understand. So this project, the dune that's being constructed, again, was studied and was found to be the most cost-effective solution for the federal government to reduce damages for Long Beach Island. And that's a design dune of 22 feet elevation. That's not height off the ground. That's the North American vertical datum is plus 22. That's the top of the dune, and that dune is approximately 30 feet wide at the top, and it takes up 150 to 170 feet depending on the elevation it comes to in the back and the front of the slope. The beach berm is the average natural berm on the island, whereas the flat portion before it slopes into the water is about 8 feet NAVD. And again, that slope is on average 1:10 going into the water, down through mean low water. And I know that's an issue and a topic, and we'll talk more about that later. Go to the next slide. So the overview. Project is almost 18 miles long. Building 63,000 linear feet of beach and dunes are going to be constructed. Almost 10,000 feet of that in Beach Haven. 8.3 million cubic yards of sand are going to be pumped as part of this phase of the project. 2.5 million from Beach Haven to the end of the project in Holgate. So the sand for the project. During the feasibility study, extensive investigations were undertaken to find A, suitable sand, and B, sand that other interests will let us use and borrow and put on your beach. So it's an ongoing struggle of finding enough approved sand borrow areas. There's plenty of sand in the ocean, but we're not allowed to take it. There's other competing interests among those fishermen, among those other companies. There's federal waters, there's state waters, and it's all different. So we were successful to get one large area that we call Area D, which is offshore of Harvey Cedars and North Beach. Half of it's in federal waters, and half of it's in state waters. We began the project in Surf City and Harvey Cedars and the north part of Brant Beach with the D1 state waters, in state waters. So this just shows the typical cross-section. You can see all this stuff on our website as well. We have the feasibility study that was authorized to build the project. There's all the design information in there. You can see the typical beach. Part of the project, through some discussions with the municipalities, we tried to modify a slope in a few areas. We can do this on small areas that don't affect the overall integrity of the project. You get enough sand. We balance the sand, and we're monitoring what's happening at these areas where we built them. We built a few in Harvey Cedars to start. Ship Bottom was just completed, and we will be building them through the township and at a couple locations in Beach Haven. And we will be monitoring how that beach performs. It's simply a 1-on-20 slope from mean low water up to the berm, where the natural slope is 1-on-10 in that area. At each project, I know there was some concern on how do we get over the sand dunes, which are going to be much larger than you're used to. What we've built in other projects in New Jersey, on Long Beach Island, and elsewhere throughout the country are hard packed surfaces. It's a road base. It's a mix of gravel and sand, and it packs down and makes it a lot easier to walk over than just walking over sand, which is very challenging for even the most healthy of us. So we recognize that, and we worked with each municipality to come up as much as we could to design something that each municipality wants. So you see there'll be a little bit different in Harvey Cedars, a little bit different in Surf City, through the township, and in Beach Haven. So when you see a beach fill being done, you see a whole bunch of sand, you see a whole lot of activity going on out there. But what you're actually seeing is the beach being placed with the sand that's going to nourish the profile under the water. We can't put sand in the water and know where it's going to go. So anywhere below mean low water, it's a crapshoot. The waves, depending on how stormy it is, that sand will go anywhere and we can't account for it. We can't pay the contractor for it. So that's a big issue. And so when we build these projects, the reason the berms initially are 400, 500 feet wide is we put the advanced nourishment quantity out front. That's what that brown arrow there shows, advanced nourishment. So that's why the beach is so large when we finish. And we know it's going to adjust. We count on it adjusting. And that's just what has to happen when we build these projects. I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what you're going to expect when you see the dredges and you see the workmen on your beach.
Okay, I'll go through some of this pretty quickly because I know a bunch of you probably went up to some of the project areas and seen what's going on. But essentially we're going to have the dredge, 4 dredges offshore. Each of those dredges is equipped with screens to prevent debris coming into the hopper of certain sizes. The screen size on that is 1.25 inches by 6 inches, and that's to keep some large debris coming into the hopper. There's going to be pipeline in the water. Some of you have seen it where the boats are hooking up offshore. And then there's also pipe that's sunk on the bottom, and what they do is they actually hook up to those pipes and they place the sand in through those pipes onto the beach. What they will, you'll see pipeline on the beach, and that's going to be at various locations. To maximize efficiency, Great Lakes is landing the pipeline onto the beach at multiple locations. This way their production numbers can stay high and they can stay up with Mother Nature as best as possible when they're filling, because they're working against tides and currents and storms and stuff along those lines. We have screens that are on the beach. You'll see photos. We use the screens. They have a small 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch, and this is to keep the smaller debris from coming out to the beach. And what we do is the State of New Jersey and the Army Corps of Engineers go through the screening to pull out any debris and to make sure that nothing dangerous is there. If something is there that we have to be concerned with, we have appropriate measures with the contractor, with the Corps of Engineers, and with the appropriate authorities to deal with whatever we find. And also, there's going to be a lot of heavy machinery on the beach to move around the sand and move equipment around to go from site to site. We're using a hopper dredge. This isn't one of the Great Lakes hopper dredges, sorry, Rich. But this was a good cross-section, showed above the water, below the water, what is going on. Essentially, the hopper dredge is an open hole boat. It's got 2 drag arms that drag into the sandbar behind the boat, underneath the boat, through suction and using water. It brings the sand into the hopper. The boat then navigates to the fill site and hooks up to that floating line that's offshore. And they have their own pumps. They pump through the pipe onto the beach. The other type of dredge that we've seen on this project up in Grand Beach in 2012 is a cutterhead dredge. And essentially, it does the same thing where it's drawing in sand, but it stays at a fixed location and it pumps more continuously than the hopper dredge does. This is just an aerial photo of what's been going on the beach fill. Like I said, you've all probably seen it. In these photos, you can see the baskets and pumping through the baskets. You can see the dredge offshore, the crab out in the water. What the crab does is it actually takes a topographic and bathymetric surveys to measure what the existing condition of the beach is before we do the beach fill, and do progress surveys during the fill. And at the end of the day, when they're done, they do a final survey, and what they do is they're accounting for how much sand they place on the beach, and what that does is it allows them to get paid. This is just a closer shot of the crab. The crab is approximately 35 feet tall. Like I said, it's used to survey. It has a GPS unit on top. Those are the fixed height above the bottom of the wheels, and they use that to measure the bottom elevations. There are excavators that they're using throughout the project for multiple purposes. Some of them are for cleaning these baskets. It's also for moving equipment around, and also for bringing the material and aiding the bulldozers to fill sand into the fill area of the beach. And we have a bulldozer. You can see a few of them on the project. Probably going to hear them as well. Essentially what we have during the project is we have beach flows that go over about approximately 1,000-foot section. In the contract, we have a line item there for the contractors. You can keep that work area within that 1,000 feet. What that does is it helps them maintain safety from the public and the people who are around the area. It also minimizes the amount of disturbance that we have to the beach and to beachgoers, especially during the season. Operation is 24 hours, 7 days a week until we are done, with the exception of if there's equipment malfunction or if there's significant weather. So they will be out there doing what they do constantly until they're done. There will be lights that are up on the beach that they're using so they can see what's going on. They will have beepers on the back of the heavy equipment, so it's safe for the employees who are working in the site, so they know what's going on, know who's around, because the visibility is limited. The State and Corps, we're going to have inspectors on the project and near the project at all times, as well as project engineers and project managers. The contractor also has superintendents that are assigned to the whole project, but also sub-superintendents who are assigned to each of the ships to make sure that all public safety protocols follow and that the operations are running smoothly, and to notify all the appropriate groups in the event that something happens. Like I said, we have screening devices for debris on both the dredge and on the beach, and they are maintained and inspected periodically. This is just what the typical drag arm looks like on some of the dredges. It's pretty large. As you can see, the gentleman is standing underneath the screen for a little scale there. This is from a dredge on another project. Like I said, it's 1.25 by 6 inches. This is what the baskets look like on the beach. I'm sure many of you have seen them. Some of you may knew what we were doing with them, some didn't probably. Like I said, essentially we're pumping the water and sand through those baskets. When placed correctly, and when when they're working, they will filter out all the debris, and it allows the sand and the water to go through. At the end So we had some frequent,
So, so to answer the gentleman's question, when are we going to be in Beach Haven? The contractor, so this project has been broken down into 6 sections. They just completed section 5 or area 5, which is directly to the north of Beach Haven. Beach Haven and Holgate are considered area 6. The contractor is currently working in area 4, which is in Long Beach Township near Brant Beach. They anticipate beginning work in Beach Haven on approximately January 1st, and it will take approximately 100 days to complete all of Area 6, and that would be all of Beach Haven and all of Holgate. And they will start at 6th Street in Beach Haven, will be the first subline landing, and where they will start. 12th Street, I'm sorry, 12th Street. So that's approximately when they're going to be here. The contract completion date for this contract is in April. I don't know the exact date. Sometime in April, all the work, all the
Around
beach,
tax day.
around tax day, all the beach fill for all of Long Beach Island is supposed to be completed by that time frame.
What does that mean supposed to be?
Well, there's weather, okay? You have significant weather.
I know I'm not supposed to interrupt, but what happens if we go past the 15th Holgate? Do we get replenished?
Order.
Sorry about that. Sorry, you're about that. I'm sorry.
So the project has an end date. All contracts have dates for end dates, and they can be extended due to weather or changes in the contract. Right now, there is no changes that will extend the time frame that I'm aware of, but anything can happen. And as of right now, the beach portion of all beach fill portion of this entire project is supposed to be completed in April. We get significant weather, that will be delayed and extended. There's other portions of the project, including grass planting, beach grass plantings, and fertilization. Beach grass can only be planted certain times of the year. We're coming up on that time frame. It starts approximately in November and ends in March. So as much of the completed dune will be planted as possible this season, but the project, all the plantings won't be completed until next winter. And then there's fertilization that occurs too. The crossovers are to be completed within 2 weeks of sand placement for every section. So the standard pedestrian crossovers will be constructed within 2 weeks, and then there's ADA crossovers, which are more labor intensive, and then vehicular crossovers. So those are the major work items, but all the bulk of the construction will be completed in Beach Haven before next summer.
Everybody is going to get the beach fill. The money will not run out. It's appropriated. That's the one thing that's not going to change. Everybody's going to get the beach fill, and the entire project area is going to get filled, completed, crossovers, dune grass, the whole 9 yards. So, in preparation of the meeting, we knew there were a lot of questions that people had, and so the ones that we knew about, we prepared our answers ahead of time, so that you have the information. So the big one, can we change the slope at Center Street? At the moment, we are doing 2 areas in Beach Haven where we're going to try that modified slope. Right now, we cannot change any of the other areas. We'll be monitoring all the areas, and we will be ready the next time around if there's any noticeable reason to do it. We would then look at that information and modify from there. But under this contract, at the current time, we will not be able to fill that area at a different slope. So that leads right into the other question that was essentially the same question, except where they want to do the entire town at a modified slope. It's not feasible to do that for the remaining beaches. There's mechanical reasons. There's practical reasons as well as budget constraints on reasons why we can't do it. We can, again, as I said earlier, we can only control the sand down to the mean low water line. After that, you're pumping it into the ocean. Depending on the wave climate of the day, you can't guess where the sand's going, and you can't make it stop. It's going to just flow out and go wherever it's going to go. So we can only control the sand down to the mean low water line. After that, Mother Nature and the waves are going to work the sand and put it into its configuration. It's going to reach its own equilibrium based on the amount of sand that's in the system, and that includes all the sand we're putting in from Loveladies all the way down through Holgate. That sand is going to work in the system with the natural currents and waves, and it's going to reach its own equilibrium slope very quickly, regardless of what we do. And with that in mind, Dr. Friebel's here tonight to give a little discussion on what we've found to date from some of the modified beaches that we've already done, namely in Harvey Cedars. So we are giving thought to everybody's suggestions. We are taking them to heart, and we are looking at them. But we're looking at them from a scientific and a data-driven way, not on perception or what people think is happening. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Friebel, and he's presented a very good, he's prepared a very good presentation.
Thank you, Keith. So since initial construction in Surf City in 2006, the Army Corps has been fortunate enough that we've used funding to monitor the beaches. We want to look at the beaches and how they evolved after construction. And then as time went on and we started building more and more sections of Long Beach Island, questions were raised. Could we make modifications? And we've been trying some of them, and we've been monitoring them, and I'm here today to present the results. Just a quick overview of what the beach is and the beach project. The dune is the primary mechanism for our storm damage reduction project. The dune is the meat and potatoes of what we're putting out here to protect the infrastructure behind it. The berm, I hate to use the word sacrificial, but the berm is there. That's the recreational part where we put our chairs and our towels when we enjoy the beach. But the berm is there to protect the dune. That's how Mother Nature designed it. That's how it functions. If we walked away, that's how all natural beaches look. The berm crest is what is the break point where it'll start to slope down from in Long Beach Island. The elevation's about +8. It'll slope into the water. What Keith was alluding to, and he did a very good job, and it might be difficult to understand, but hopefully if I explain it, it might make more sense. Mother Nature is the best at doing what she wants to do. She is the best at protecting herself. And so it doesn't matter, and I'm going to show you the data, if we place the beach at 1 on 50, if I place it at 1 on 20, if I place it at 1 on 5. Nature is going to evolve the beach profile the way it wants to, and it's a function of both the grain size that comes out of the barrier, or the grain size that's on the beach, and the wave climate. Harvey Cedars is a very unique barrier island. It has a very steep, deep offshore. You get a lot of wave energy that impacts and rolls up on the beach. It's why it's one of the best surf spots in South Jersey. I would go to say it is the best surf spot. So I just wanted to, and I'll explain a little more how that happens, but it doesn't, I'm going to tell you the conclusion now. It doesn't really matter if we had the money and we could do it, and I could build it to 1 on 50, 1 on 30, or even steeper, 1 on 5, 1 on 3. Mother Nature is going to put it back the way she wants to. Typically, it takes 1 winter season for her to do her work. Thanks. If you go to the beach, depending on the time of year, you're going to see a different beach profile. And this is, hopefully will explain a little about what Mother Nature does. At the top, I show a typical summer beach profile. You have your dune, and then you have a very wide berm, gradual offshore. You may have still remnants of a bar, but typically not anywhere near what you would see in the winter. As fall comes and the winter comes, the wave climate gets energized. We get bigger waves with much more energy. Those waves will actually start eroding the wide berm from the summer profile, and it will deposit that that sand into an offshore bar during the winter. Why I was saying Mother Nature does a very effective job is during the winter, as that offshore bar builds, those waves will then break on the offshore bar, dispersing the energy in the water rather than up on the beach berm. So you might see the beach get really narrow in the winter, but all that sand is sitting offshore. Then as spring comes and summertime comes and the wave energy dies down, we get smaller waves. It's terrible for surfing. I know because I used to surf here at high school. That beach the waves, those small waves with long periods, 10, 8, 9 seconds between each wave, will then push the sand back up onto the berm and create a wide berm for the summer. So nature is doing her work, protecting the beaches by herself. The big waves, it'll start to erode, she'll build a bar, and then all of a sudden the energy will be dispersed offshore and we won't get any more erosion, hopefully on the beach and the dunes protected. And then conversely in the summer, those smaller waves will then build the beach back wider again. Just want to talk a little bit about our construction profile. When we design our beach, we have the existing beach, and then what we want to put out there is a defined berm width in front of our project, in front of the dune, that we estimate between the time we're going to come back to re-nourish our understanding of the island, we will build what's called a design width. And then we're also going to add to that advanced nourishment, which is going to push the berm out even further seaward. So as Keith alluded to, and Bill, at the end of the project, when we're done initial construction, you're going to see the widest beach possible, but it's not going to stay, and I'm going to explain why. As we talked about earlier, we have limitations of how we can work the sand. We cannot place sand mechanically under the water at a fixed slope. We don't have dozers that go underwater. So what we have to do is we have to build out the beach, pump the beach, and then we push it out further and further into the ocean. And then the wave climate, that winter season, will adjust the profile. So even though I wanted, if you saw on the previous slide, the blue line, which I call my design slope, that's the additional sand I'm adding to the berm. I can't get it all underwater. So I have to make what's called a modified construction template where the berm is much more wider and it intersects the ground at the point that's shown. And so essentially what happens is the light blue area, which is my typical design slope, my design profile, that volume that I can't mechanically place because it's underwater, I put that in the orange shaded area so that the two areas match. All the volume is there, I just can't mechanically do it myself, the direct, when I say I mean the companies. So we have to wait and rely on Mother Nature to move that sand from the upper part of the berm into the offshore, between -10 and -20, -25. We physically, our engineering, we cannot do that. When I'm going to talk about the design and construction template, we have the berm crest. Again, that's the +8 where it goes into the water, and we'll look at mean high water and mean low water lines. So we've looked at the slopes, and this is new data. I should say new, but this is a new way to present it. And I wanted to look at the slopes from initial construction, the towns that we worked on, Surf City, Harvey Cedars, Brand Beach, and Beach Haven. And I wanted to show some data about the slopes. So since Surf City was constructed in 2006, we have a lot of data in Surf City. We have actually 23 different surveys collected. Surveys are very expensive to collect. They're almost up to $2,000 per line. Looking at our historical database, I had 2 in Surf City that I was able to analyze over the very long term with those 23 surveys. And again, Surf City was constructed with a 1:10 slope. Prior to construction, I looked at our monitoring data. Before we did any work in Surf City, the slope from the berm at +8 to mean low water, our limit of where we could mechanically put sand, was about 11 to 1. After construction, we've been monitoring the beach, and it's actually flattened, surprisingly to me, to about 12.5 to 1. Harvey Cedars we did in 2009. I had 8 surveys I was able to look at. I looked at 5 data profile, 5 lines. Again, it was constructed in 1:10. The slope from the berm to mean low water was about 11.4 feet. And after construction, analyzing all the surveys after construction, it is again flattened to 13.9. If you, until 2014. Our last monitoring survey was taken in October 2014. And this is not just selecting one profile survey, this is all the surveys after construction, looking at them all and looking at the average. Okay. Grand Beach again, constructed in 2012. We have 19 surveys there, looked at 5 profiles prior to construction. The average slope was about 10.5 to 1. Post-construction, again, it was only completed in 2012, but it's flattened. It's 13.8. If you think about it, it actually kind of makes sense. Long Beach Island was in a very sand-starved state. You didn't have a lot of sand in the beaches. Your groins were sticking out. The beaches were narrow. Finally, we're getting some sand into the system, and that sand is dispersing from other parts of the project, and it's starting to flatten out. So as we build more and more parts of this project, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see some parts that were historically steeper, flattener, and then this might fluctuate, but on average, the slope on this island is approximately 1 on 10, and as we're adding more sediment to the system, it might flatten out to 1 on 12 or 1 on 13. Beach Haven, where we are today, I looked at our survey data. We only have 3 surveys to date because, again, we don't have a project here, and it's very expensive to collect surveys. The existing slope in Beach Haven is about 13.2 to 1. So it's not 20 to 1, it's not 30 to 1. The average slope from the berm to the mean low water is about 13 to 1. Excuse me. In 2013, we were requested by the Borough of Harvey Cedars if we could do a modified slope. And the Corps met with the local interested parties, and we decided that we would take a shot and see if we could modify the slope. And what we decided to do is we tried to construct a slope of 1 on 20 versus the 1 on 10. It wasn't my recommendation to do that because knowing how Mother Nature's going to do what she wants, understanding the grain size of the beach, but we wanted to give it a shot anyway. Who knows, maybe something fantastic would have happened. So again, we sloped the beach from the berm crest to mean low water at 1 on 20. I have 6 sets of surveys available. We have 3 profile lines that we monitor. Immediately after construction, the slope went from 1 on 20 to almost 1 on 25. Immediately after construction. That's just a function of there's so much sand in the system, the waves start grabbing that super wide berm that I showed you, that construction template, and it starts flattening out. And so here's a profile with the 1 on 20 construction template. You can see how it breaks at the mean low water, and then below that it's 1 on 10. And you can still, immediately after construction, it was actually a little flatter than the 1 on 20. Next slide. 1 month later, we came back, we monitored, looked at those same lines again. The average slope went to about 1 on 17. So it went from 1 on 24 to 1 on 17 in a month. And here again, you can see it cutting back, and it's going to the natural slope of the island. 2 months later, approximately about the same, it's about 18.6 to 1. Next slide. 3 months later, about 17.7 to 1. And finally, 1 year later, we came back, and the beach was eroded, and it's about 7 to 1. Okay? Harvey Cedars is one of the steepest areas on the island, so we expect it to be, the average slope on this island is 1 on 10. So if you have some beaches that are typically above 1 on 10, say 1 on 13, 1 on 14, you're going to have some that are steeper than 1 on 10. And here's a profile shot. And then what I want to do is I just want to demonstrate, in Harvey Cedars, when we did the 1 on 20 construction slope, we also had some control lines that we built at our typical 1 on 10. And so I just want to show a side-by-side comparison. On the left-hand side is the 1 on 20 construction slope, and on the right-hand side is the 1 on 10. So immediately after construction, you can see the profiles. 1 month later, you can see on the right-hand side it's adhering to the 1 on 10 profile, and the 1 on 20 is starting to steepen up. 2 months later, they look almost identical. 3 months later, again identical. And 1 year later, just about identical. So the point I'm trying to say is, if we could build it 1 on 20 and it would stay on 1 on 20 or 1 on 30, it would be worth pursuing. But just understanding that it's not up to us, it's a function of the grain size and the wave climate, that these beaches are going to evolve to the state of equilibrium that is the forcing that's put on them. And there's really nothing we could do. We could build it, it's going to cost a lot more money, and you're going to lose some of the beach quicker, but in the end, within one winter cycle, it's going to go back to the state it wants to be at. Beach Haven's about 13 to 1. I expect after construction, knowing what's happened to the other islands